Welcome to JCATS, a program that seeks to introduce Japanese contextualized literature and ideas for use by missionaries and anyone that seeks to share the gospel with Japanese people.
日本人から聞く日本のキリスト教。
Hey, welcome to JCATS. John here. Have a fun interview for you today. Put it on just a minute. That's going to be with Pastor Tsuji Sensei, and also Kohei, who was on a few weeks ago. Kohei Koyama. My friend, he was raised in Japan. He's Japanese. He went to the States for about 20 years, and he's back in Japan as a missionary. And Tsuji Sensei is the pastor that he works with. Tsuji Sensei is interesting for a number of ways, but one thing that I think is interesting about Tsuji Sensei is that he's a Japanese pastor in his early 30s, which is pretty unusual. So his denomination, which is a Baptist group in Japan, they have an interesting delivery system for their seminary training, which Tsuji Sensei will tell us about. He will also tell us about some felt needs among Japanese millennials, his friends, what they think they're looking for in religion potentially. And Kohei is going to talk to us a little bit more about cooperation between missionaries and pastors. So we'll get to that in just a bit. But before that, I had a question that I wanted to run by all of you. So think this through, and you can, if you're watching on YouTube, you can answer in the comments, or you can email me, jcatsjapan@gmail.com. Or if you find this on like an RGC Facebook group or something like that, then feel free to just comment there. Okay. So the question that I have for you is something that's come up a couple of weeks in a row at my church, and that is, what do we do with Judas? And what I mean by that is a couple of people at my church, when we talk about Judas betraying Jesus, and then Judas showing some shame, or some, I don't know if you would call it remorse. He goes, he tries to return the money, and then he goes and he hangs himself. Somewhat tragic story, right? Well, a couple of people at church are they feel for this guy, and they are wondering if Judas is going to go to heaven, and their thought is that he showed some remorse. He was, in a sense, sorry for what he did, but then, of course, he ended up killing himself without, before, probably, it seems like before Jesus rose from the dead. And so he maybe never had another encounter with Jesus on this earth. So I mean, I can give you, and you can give me the missionary answer, the Christian answer, the biblical answer. But how would you speak with Japanese, either seekers or Christians, about, I guess, how they sort of look at Judas with some pity, seeing a person who shows remorse and commits suicide, which, in Japanese history, you have a lot of cases, right, of people trying to right wrongs, or maybe erase shame by committing ritualistic suicide, right? You have seppuku, right? You have seppuku. So It's in all the samurai movies, right? It's in the 47 Ronin, everything, right? It's ritualistic suicide is very Japanese, right? So they look at the Judas story and they want to know what's wrong with this. Okay. So again, we have the right answer from our perspective. Jesus saves, salvation through Jesus. Judas didn't know Jesus. Okay, but they want to connect with this guy. How would you do it? Is my question for you. How would you explain this in a way that is both biblically trustworthy and also culturally culturally sensitive, I guess? So yeah, love to hear your answers on that. And in the meantime, please enjoy this interview with Kohei and Pastor Tsuji. Hey, welcome to JCATS. This is John Robinson. I'm here with two special friends. We're still at Kohei's mother's house. She's a wonderful host. Thank you for having us. And we wanted to... Oh my goodness, just a second. Is that... Oh, good. The microphone's plugged in. All right. So, Kohei, who is a missionary in Yamagata, works with Tsuji Sensei. And he's here with us. And I wanted to ask him, to hear from him about a little bit about his training to be a pastor, because we think that how he was trained is a very good contextualized system, especially for Japan. And I also wanted to hear from him about some ideas like felt needs that he comes across at his church in Yamagata. So, Pastor Tsuji Sensei, thank you for being on the show. Tsuji Sensei can do it in English or Japanese, and Kohei's here to help in case we want to get into more detailed answers with translation. So, yeah, could you tell us about yourself a little bit and about your theological training?
Okay, so I'm a pastor of the church where I grew up, and I took a training through our seminary in Sendai. The seminary is called SBS, and now it has a very unique program, which is called CBTE Paradigm Program, which stands for Church-Based Theological Education. So in that program, I was taking all the training in my church under the mentoring of my pastor, so that we can actually do theology in the context of where we are and with all the people that we are pastoring or we are reaching out. So the program encourages us to see it's not only teaching a theology, this is the perfect theology, you need to learn this and you need to apply this to your people, but it encourages us to read the Bible and see your church and do what's needed. And the program is came through. I mean, it was by Build International, which is located in Iowa. They have their own website, so if you are very interested, then you can look up the website. So yeah, that's a training.
Great, thanks. That's really interesting. So, so the denomination trains pastors by taking a theological training package and teaching it at the church with a mentor, and the mentor is able to unpack it and work together with the student. in order to bring that into sort of the local context. Is that's kind of what it sounds like?
Right.
Yeah, and so one of the reasons Kohei said just a minute ago why that's cool is because thinking about the situation of pastors in Japan, I think the average age of a pastor is very, very
High,
old.
Yeah.
Very old. That's a scientific number right there. But and the number of pastors seems to be shrinking. Whereas it seems like the pastors in your group, there's a number of younger pastors,
Right.
and so this seems to be this church-based theological education model seems to be a really good way for especially this country and this situation to train new pastors. So that's something it's been cool to see whenever I'm able to be in any of the sort of denominational meetings. Another question that I wanted to ask you was, in your context, you're in Yamagata, and so I wonder if, I kind of think it's not the case that the local people are as interested in Christianity because of its foreignness. So I wonder, for you, why do you think the people that you come across are interested in Christianity? What are their felt needs is kind of what I'm getting at, is what are the felt needs of the people in your community? And perhaps, do you see any crossover with some of the felt needs that maybe why people in your area might go to a shrine or go to a temple? Do you see any crossover in those, or do you think maybe they're coming for different needs to the church? I just want to hear your thoughts about that topic.
So I'm 33, and my generation, like my friends, my people are not very religious. They don't think they have faith in like Buddhism or Shintoism, but still they like go there for special occasion. But I think younger generation in Japan and in my hometown look for answer for their life. They want to know the meaning of their life, and like, I don't know, maybe this is very similar to younger generation in America. They are more of they are not like atheists, or they are not against religion, but how can I say, they are more like a what I want to say.
Indifferent or 無関心違う
Right, but they're like a more like a religious pluralism, or
多元主義と
so they say, oh, you're a Christian and you're a pastor. Oh, well, you can, I can freely, speak with them about our faith, what we believe, and they say, oh, that's good. That's a very good thing, and I can see that makes you live the way you're living, and I'm impressed. But they are not sure if they want to take that in to their lives. But they do not have their own, this certain way or certain answer that they can rely on. Maybe like it's cool for them to say, I'm looking for the purpose of my life. That's the purpose of my life.
Oh, the journey, huh?
Yeah. So
Interesting.
I don't know if I'm answering to your question, but they are looking for an answer in Christianity, but also I feel like they're content of who they are. I'm looking for an answer.
Interesting. So yeah, the younger generation that you come across maybe looking at Christianity as possibly an answer to the meaning of life, but perhaps many of them are content to keep looking
Right.
indefinitely. That's interesting.
How do you feel?
I mean, I'm not his generation. I'm a little older generation. I'm not sure I'm related to what she just said, but one thing I realized, Japanese people come to know Christ. I rarely hear Japanese people come to know Christ as first time hear the gospel. Like, Japanese seem like, they really want to chew upon, for many, many years. Like, I know a 7 years old guy who read the whole Bible 7 times, and finally he committed his life to Christ, and I think this is not typical testimony, and so it's and I think it's maybe true with the young generation too. I think they are seeking, and maybe content with just keep seeking, but it's like almost like, I think we talk about how Paul preached to the Athens, people in Athens also are very religious, and I think they are interested to talk, but is maybe I think the Japanese to know this unknown God, what Paul's talk about. I feel like, but it's not that simple. I think Japanese need to see not just teaching, they want to see, the life change, they need to see that people are living the gospel, I guess, and all those things. And of course, above all, they need to find Jesus himself, right? But again, like simple presentation of, especially the Western program type of gospel may not cut it, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember in the conversation, we also talked about how Japanese shukyo and like English religion is somewhat, it's translated into each other, but it's not exactly the same. So for Japanese people, shukyo means putting faith in some God, so that it can, lead them to better life, or they can provide them a safety or some kind of happiness, blessing. It's not a worldview.
I've heard something to that effect, that the word shukyo was actually invented or maybe brought in, I don't know, but the word shukyo actually came after some of the older Japanese religions, such that when Japanese people think of shukyo, they're thinking of newer or foreign religions, and when they think of older Japanese, what we might call religions, from a Western perspective, it might be thought of as spirituality, or maybe mystical experience. Something like Shinto is maybe not thought of as religion as a Westerner might define religion. It's something that I'd heard. Is that kind of...
Yeah.
So, in a sense, when Japanese people hear shukyo, there's often a kind of a no thank you idea to that. But they themselves might think of a concept of spirituality and not reject that concept. It's interesting. Yeah. It's just so many just vocabulary itself it can be troublesome.
And that's why I appreciate, like, you're even, you said in the first podcast, or this title of JCAT, right? Like, you want to hear from Japanese people, not the translating Western material to Japanese. That's not the. I mean, I don't know. You still call
Oh,
that
yeah.
contextualization, or is that the lowest form of a contextualization? I don't know how you said it.
Yeah, I don't remember it. I say a lot of random stuff, but I think I think it's fun to theorize something, right, from outside. So I think it can be an interesting and an intellectually stimulating idea from my perspective, to try to contextualize Japanese Christianity. But I think really the best result, the goal, like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, to take an Irish thing, is when theology is so well contextualized that you have local people almost like praying and writing their thoughts almost like local hymns. So, blending their theology and their lived experiences. And that's not going to come out of somebody like a missionary trying to imagine what Japanese thought is. I think that's going to come out of the Japanese church. And so, that's why I really appreciate talking with you guys, because I think you guys are going to be the ones that are pushing that forward in the future, and I'm excited to see what you come up with. So good luck. Yeah, so if there's anything else you'd like to share, the audience is largely missionaries in Japan, people interested in missions in Japan, or people who have Japanese friends. And so while you're thinking about what you might want to say in way of closing to them, there was one thing that Kohei mentioned that I thought was really great. It's a contextualization in itself, is to contextualize our expectations for a longer term relationship before people come to know Christ. I think in the West we have more of an instant gratification mentality where we like to see people become Christians immediately. But as Kohei mentioned, people take more time to think about it here. And it makes sense because of just the groundwork, the cultural groundwork that people have, being so different from Christianity. But it's encouraging too to see people take the time to think it through, and then after having taken potentially even years to make that decision. By way of anecdote, my wife is Japanese. Her father was a pastor, but both her parents were first-generation Christians. 3 of her 4 grandparents, and the 3 of her 4 grandparents who are no longer with us, became Christians within a year of their deaths. And that was after their children had been pastors' wives for decades. So sometimes people take that extra time here, and that's an expectation that as missionaries it can be frustrating, but I think it can also be encouraging, knowing that people are still thinking maybe even after we've even given up on them. So that was cool. Thanks. And if you have any more thoughts that you'd like to just share with the listeners, it's all yours.
So Japanese churches are aging, as well as Japanese pastors, like John just said a few minutes ago. But it's said that there are some growing churches in Japan too, and many of them, one common thing is they are having like multi-culture, either like worship service or style church activities. So still missionaries from outside, from the States or from whatever, are very powerful tool to empower Japanese churches. I know Japanese churches need to learn how to cooperate with the missionaries now, because after World War II, there were many church planting missionaries. There might be older Christians who expect you to do everything, to build a church out of nowhere. But we are learning through the experience to how to work with the workers from outside, and we really appreciate if you are like interested in working with us, or sending prayer for our work in Japan. Like Kohei-san, his mission organizations, they say, our mission is to do the mission, vision of the Japanese churches. It's very encouraging, and so please work with us.
So I think that's a very great point. At first it sounds like go against again, going back forces from contextualization, but it doesn't mean that we don't need outside help. I think it's more we're talking about it's not about the missionary is above us or something. It's about doing together. I think we can, if you can do together, tomoni is kind of the key phrase. Our organizations talk about, but I think that's a huge thing. And it's not the missionary take a spotlight. A lot of times I think we can work together. Not, and I don't think it's just a pastor missionary should share the gospel. I think whole Japanese believer, should be also the part of the sharing the gospel and discipling others. So I think that's great point that he just concluded. It's not that we are saying we don't need you missionary. All Japanese has to be the one that doing it, and it's still.
Yeah, I forgot to say this because Japanese people see the true love when we love each other.
Yeah.
When we love, when we try to be one in love, they see the answer that they are looking for in the unity.
Yeah, that's like that old song, they will know we are Christians by our love, huh? Yeah, good stuff. Well, thank you so much for your time, and you as well, Kohei and Mrs. Koyama, for your hospitality. Thank you again. Very appreciated. You guys have a safe drive. Try not to fall asleep. Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.